Hi, this is the vlog for, this will be May 17th? No, 16th, May 16th. Um, and 16th, 17th, 18th. Saturday will be the 3-month anniversary of this little project. So I don't know if I'm going to do anything special for it, but we must be getting pretty close to episode 100 as well. So I probably should put in the effort to do something special if I can remember to. It's funny, I don't have any work right now, and I still am forgetting to do all the things that I've meant to do for quite some time in favor of mostly playing video games all day. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about today. So the friends who've got me into Warframe are among the people that value story in video games. I don't put a lot of importance on story, even in very story-driven games like role-playing games or adventure games. I feel like a good story is a good story and doesn't need the vehicle of a video game to tell it. And only rarely do you get games where the story is the game, such as Life is Strange, where your ability to replay events until you get them just the way you want them to be, that's the gameplay. So watching the story and making the story change through this strange time control mechanic is the game. And that's really creative. But games like those come around very rarely because they're very hard to do. It's very hard to make a game have all the different options that Life is Strange did. And while it was an unprecedented undertaking with lots of recording work and lots of, programming and game creation, I don't think it made enough money that they want to make that the type of game they want to do next, because the next game that studio's making is something about vampires. I don't know. Probably not going to get the same young girl having adventures in Oregon market that they got with Life is Strange. So, Warframe. This is a game I started playing 5 years ago at least. So this would have been like 2013. And when I started playing it was in open beta. And of course, it's still in open beta pretty much because they've never done an official release of the game. Not that they ever will. They've been making money getting people to buy stuff in the game. I've given them over $100. But I don't feel too bad about that because I've spent 200 hours playing the game. 205 to be exact. And so that's why today came as a bit of a shock. So Warframe's core mechanics, not the actual like in-game mechanics, but the flow of the game is you choose a quest on what is called the star chart, or not a quest, you choose a mission on the star chart. You go down to that mission. The map is procedurally generated, so it's different each time, although each map has a tile set that it can pull from. And while you will be going any which way, and it is different every time, you'll be seeing a lot of the same sorts of, like, oh, I've been through this hallway before. Oh, this door again. So sometimes I feel like that sort of works to the detriment of a game like this, because it can be a very pretty game. But you go in, I'm getting off track. You go in, you do a mission, you get a procedurally generated map that you explore, and you perform whatever task you're there to do, which there are a lot of variety in mission types. There's about a dozen core mission types, but you don't have to do the same kind over and over again usually. So you get a mix of things, and you'll be like, oh, I'm in the mood for a spy mission. I want to sneak around. Or I'm in the mood to just kill everything. I want to do an eliminate mission. So that's cool. I'm glad that they have all those options. So, on the other hand, there's a side sort of flow to the game, which is the quest system. Now, the quest system unlocks significant rewards, whereas missions will give you materials you'll gather in the map that are used to craft items, and the rarest items are blueprints, especially for the titular warframes themselves. Often drop as boss drops. So you end up running bosses over and over again to get all of the blueprints that you need to make a warframe, and then you use the resources you've been gathering, sort of, while you've been doing everything else, to build the warframe. And that's a process that takes time. I think I've gone over that. You can speed the process up if you give them some real world money. But building a full warframe takes at least 12 hours to make each component, although you can have multiple components building at the same time. And then 72 hours to actually build the warframe itself, which isn't that bad. Honestly, I just finished building my second. The very first warframe I actually built, I did rush. It was Valkyr. I really wanted a tanky, solid, survivable warframe, and I wanted it now. So I had her built. But then the second warframe I built, I actually let 72 hours roll through, and it wasn't bad. I bought a number of warframes using the real world money, so I had a small selection, and my selection is going to be. I have two more that are going to be ready tomorrow morning. Nyx and Rhino. Rhino's another big tanky frame, arguably more survivable than Valkyr, but more situational. Better at buffing the party and acting as sort of a damage focus, but susceptible to certain things that Valkyr can usually get past. So Valkyr will be my tanky frame for solo play. Rhino will probably be my tanky frame for group play, which I'm doing a lot more of too. I've gotten off track again. This is the game. You do a mission, you get a random map, you have a specific objective that you need to do. You get a nice reward for doing it. Usually you get incremental rewards depending on how much time or effort you spend on the individual maps. Those rewards are typically blueprints that use the resources you gather to build new equipment, weapons, and warframes, and some other tertiary things as well. And then there are quests. The game is not big on storytelling in those missions. Sometimes if you're in a map with a boss, the boss will taunt you saying all the things that it's done. But a lot of the boss information is lore information that you have to read in the wiki or on the website that Digital Extremes, the developers, have created. But these quests, which take place over a span of missions, like the very first quest when you start the game is about 5 missions. Actually, it might be a few more. And each mission is unlocking another sort of feature of basic play. So the first mission you do gives you your first primary, secondary, and melee weapon and your first warframe. The second mission you do allows you to actually access the star chart and go into different locations. The third mission does something else. But each time you're doing this, you get a little bit of story background as these characters talk to each other. You're constantly being guided by a mysterious figure known as the Lotus, who is female. Well, you only ever see her mouth. She wears a big mask that covers her eyes. And no eyes is a theme in the game. I'll touch on that maybe some other time. But these stories elements are so sparse that I sort of wrote them off. Because the introductory question is very introductory. Oh, you're a mysterious Tenno. We're not going to tell you what that is. You're under, danger. You have to get this thing that's been attached to you off, or it's going to warp your mind and you'll be a puppet for these guys. And so the first quest eventually culminates with you building a device to remove these things from your body that have been inserted. And then you beat the guy that put them there, and that unlocks the next planet in the star chart. And the next few quests didn't do much to wow me. They did raise some interesting questions that I just sort of thought were like, oh, well, this is probably just an oversight on the part of the developers. And this, I think, honestly, this is where gaming can be very clever about its storytelling, and it rarely bothers to do so, despite it being much easier than doing something like Life is Strange. The story of Warframe is mostly optional. Certain times you'll be gated behind completing the story in order to progress to a new planet in the star chart. But the all the elements that have been introduced to the player that have seemed like background, like, oh, this is just something, oh, the Warframes have special abilities they get from the void. What's the void? Eventually you get to go to these areas where there are towers in this strange part of space that isn't normally accessible, and everything inside is pristine and clean and weird, and you're going, okay, this is different from the grungy, dirty ships of the corporate techno monstrosities that I've been previously adventuring on. And certainly the exact opposite of the infested, zombie monsters that you've been fighting. But this quest today, the second dream, is just a landmark in doing things. I sort of knew what the whole crux of the situation was going to be, but the way it was presented was so smart. And I have to give Digital Extremes a lot of credit because it was a lot of fun. The animation was very good. The music was top notch. Very different from what I've been used to playing this game so far. To give you an idea of how important this is one of the few quests in the game that it will let you replay because there's so much going on that it's like... and I don't want to spoil it for people, but I was so skeptical that I'd have any fun playing Warframe, and it is a buggy game. There are things that I still roll my eyes and I'm going, 5 years of this, guys, and you haven't fixed this issue. There are things that I remember from playing it back when it just broke out of closed beta that are still problems to this day. And the one thing about it is this is a team that loves this game, and it has a really vast community of people that really enjoy it, despite all of its faults, and sometimes because of all of its faults. It's like the MMO equivalent of Skyrim, honestly, which is something that Elder Scrolls Online can't even get behind. Skyrim is a game that lets you do a lot of different things the way you want to do them. And admittedly, the scope of what you can do in Warframe is smaller, but the amount of character customization, 205 hours I've played this game, and today is the first time I actually got to make my character. In a game where I thought the character was the Warframe I was in or wearing or however it worked, because they never explain that. They never explain how it works, anything about it. And now I understand. And I understand why my friends have been raving about this particular quest and how they've been, no spoilers, none, no talking about it except in very specific channels. So it is making me definitely want to speed up to the next part of the quest chain, the War Within, which apparently even gets further deeper into how these Tenno work. I've gone well over my time limit for today, but I had a lot to talk about today. So I think I'll talk more about Warframe tomorrow. Hopefully I'll have more information. Hopefully I have my mind blown again. I don't know if any other quest in this game is going to have such a pivotal, kind of moment. And even though it was something I sort of understood and I sort of knew what was coming, and it sort of filled in the gaps, the way it was handled was just perfect. A lot of what people think is important in movies and books is the plot or the twist, but I would argue that it's the presentation of plot elements, the spectacle. The spectacle in games is at least as important as the story. I think, in fact, it's more important, but I'll talk about that some other time. For now, I'm Eric Spornitz, and tomorrow will be better.